onlinechesslessons.net. I'm going to be looking at a fellow YouTube chess channel, international master Christof Sielecki, and he's going to be playing white in this game, and with black is going to be Mark van der Werf. So these guys are some pretty heavy hitters. I believe they're both IMs, right about 2,400 FIDE. So just kicking things off, you know, Chess Explained with white. He's going to be opening up with knight f3 here. And the King's Indian attack, old favorite of Bobby Fischer with this early Fianchetto business. And so with c6, black is, well, he's shoring up the center and protecting his light squares in the center against white's bishop here. So black's trying to shut it down early. And so I play c4. So he wants to open it up early. And so black here with g6, just, you know, pretty chill opening stuff. This opening with knight f3, Fianchetto, c4, all these moves. This is pretty, usually, depends what you're doing, but kind of an attempt to avoid the sharper lines in the opening. And if you feel like you're a strong positional player and your weakness is the opening, maybe this can be, you know, a strategy you can use in tournaments. So at b3, in response to g6, we're going to see some fighting along these dark squares, and that's, you know, we'll see that's important later in the game. So white wants to get his bishop there before black, you know, starts controlling the diagonal. So castles, standard stuff. You know, you can see white waited a little bit to castle to set up his pieces. I like to do that as well in a closed position. And now a5. So black is trying to get fresh on the queen side. And a5 is cool. You know, this is a nice idea to trying to weaken up this structure, this Fianchetto somehow. And the fact that white can't really play a3, because now after a4, you know, this looks pretty good for black. I mean, black is just he's stealing a pawn. So a5 is, you know, kind of astute here. That, you know, this is kind of a common thing, but this is especially good now that we got this pressure on c4 threatening a4. And white can't really play knight c3 because then we got d4, and it seems like a4 is going to happen anyway sometime. You know, knight c3 just giving up d4 in tempo. So anyway, back to the game here. Mr. Chess Explained with the white pieces. You know, he just said, hey, forget about it. You know, it's a5, whatever. So he plays d3 in the center. And I think he was probably going to take it. You know, I think that's what he was going to do. Because if a4, knight d2, maybe a3, and this is a little uncomfortable for white. You know, this pawn on a3 is really annoying. Black will also in the future probably try to put a knight, however it goes down, on b4, where the knight's just going to massage that pawn on a2. So the pawn on a3 here, in the endgame, this would be a big weakness, and white's probably going to be able to win that pawn. However, in the middle game, that can be a real serious distraction. So anyway, getting back to the matter at hand, that's what's up. If black played a4, I think Chess Explained, I think he would have captured. I think he would have taken the pawn. You know, it's not a pretty pawn to take. Black should be able to win it back, getting that knight to c5 somehow, but it will take black some time. Anyway, instead, black played b5, and this was like a little bit wild. I mean, it was, you know, this, you can't take pawn moves back. We can say that. So this b5 move, this c file opens. Having played b5 will have greatly weakened black's control over the c-file. And, you know, it's just, I would have preferred a4. I think a little more active. So b5, this is taking a lot of time. Meanwhile, white responds very well. So when your opponent's making a lot of, you know, a lot of these pawn moves, this is a lot of pawn moves, responding with active development is usually going to be the path to victory. And so black goes queen b6. It just seemed like this was a great time to play a4. This is what I thought black was going to do when I first saw the game. It's like, all right, we're setting up the bind. You know, let's set that clamp up. And now, you know, if white tries a4, I mean, this is going to be a problem. Black is going to open this guy up maybe. Anyway, food for thought. Queen b6, I just don't see the point. It's not active enough. Meanwhile, white, forcing play. It's just capture on d5. Now this diagonal might be a little bit weaker, and rook to c1 capitalizing instantly. And we can see that soft spot. Black really has two soft spots. I mean, the whole c5, C6 and C7 are soft, but I think especially C5 and C7 especially, those are going to be the soft points to get in. So black with knight to C6. What else? You got to develop. A4 still came into consideration, but now white, this was a nice move. Knight E5 at first, you know, it's like, why does white want to trade pieces? But it makes a lot of sense. So knight E5, black goes bishop B7. Okay. And now we can see knight F3. And so what this did, now white is going to get a knight here. Or black is going to have to concede to a worse endgame. Maybe white just plays D4 instantly. Talk about a bad bishop. This guy on C6 has got no future. Meanwhile, white is probably going to try to put all his pawns on dark squares. For example, A4, B4. Put the pawns on dark squares. It's going to work together. That bishop will work with those pawns, controlling all the squares the pawns can't. So, okay. This is what, you know, White's is playing a very, you know, chill positional opening, but things are starting to heat up under the surface. Because black, again, in this position, if black plays knight to D7, which would be the idea to prevent knight to E5, reduce some of this pressure and whatever. The problem with that is that positionally, black is left with a lot of holes. Dark squares, that's okay, but mainly the pawn structure. White has got a good bishop. Anyway, it's just going to be a passive defense for black. So going back, instead, black played rook fc8, and okay, it's you know, black has really got a lot of pieces grouped together on the queen side, but we're gonna see that maybe he should have just traded the dark square bishops, because what he does here, and this is like so cool that white controls this first. You know, you can see this sometimes, like controlling that is going to make your opponent uncomfortable, and like he doesn't want to trade his bishop there, and which is going to force him to make further concessions. And so now with queen to d2, this is a nice move. You know, it's either supporting b4 if you want to play it in response to a4, or it's teeing up the a5 pawn, just putting some pressure on it in case we see some exchanges on the c file, dragging the rook away. Also, the queen is just maybe one day is going to go queenside or go kingside here. So black goes back. Black is probably trying to trade some pieces here. He doesn't really have much activity. He needs to like make a pawn break, and I think this maybe was a good time to do it. Is just to play b4. He needs some activity, right? You know, that he could either do that, or he could play knight d7 and try to play e5. He's got to do something active. Bishop b7. This is why it's so important to have a plan, because it seems like, well, what's black's plan if he's not pushing? Meanwhile, white is pushing under the surface. These are, you know, little subtle positional moves. Okay, let's put this bishop here. Go ahead and just check that queen. Get it out of there. And now we can start seeing something you know, this starts shaping up pretty nicely. Not a coincidence, controlling the dark squares. White plays a3, and so I guess the idea is a4 now runs into b4. And that's really only helping white. Now this is really clear, right? If we trade off these dark square bishops, oh, these hideous pawns. These poor hideous pawns. You know, I mean, just the knight just chills on d4. This is just, oh, this is so bad. I mean, I just want to give an example. Let's make a bad move for black to defend. To play something like f4, just the knight is just so good, and just the pawns, the black pawns, the black bishop. Very bad stuff. So anyway, this is why the bishop, you know, this is so important to set up this trade, because it would greatly benefit white. So bishop f8, and this is what I'm talking about. Black, he started digging himself a hole, and he's digging it deeper. You know, I think he had to just accept it, that he was going to have a bad endgame, because look at what he's doing. He's going backwards with all of his pieces just to avoid trading off the dark square bishops. Knight e5, very logical move. And I think here black really needs to go e6. I think he needs to just e6, maybe b4. You know, I don't know, stacking a pawn, that might be a little too crazy. e6, setting up b4, that sounds reasonable. Instead, knight to e8. Oh, these crazy things we put ourselves through. So the bishop is just torturing black. Literally, black has moved back first the queen, the bishop, and now the knight, trying to buck the bishop on this diagonal. This is crazy. You know, I mean, f6 and e5. Do you really think that's going to happen? Now we see bishop h. I mean, it's not, you know, because white is going to play f4 or ChessExplained Christof Sielecki. His solution again, bishop h3. Very, very nice. You know, we can just see gradually repositioning his pieces. But most importantly, white in this game controlled the game. He controlled his opponent's counterplay, and he's making forcing moves, controlling the game. It's very important. So now we can see after bishop h3 that this f6 idea, well, let's just say in the game black captured. We'll come back to that other position. At f6 now, things are going to start looking really bad. At first I was thinking, yeah, black is okay. He's going to play a knight c7, kick the bishop. He gets an e5, touchdown. But knight f7. And it just, there's just nothing left. I mean, I guess the only move for the queen to b8. And I'm pretty sure that black's going to get mated here in any number of fashion. So, okay, so the knight e8 plan, I mean, this is not paying enough attention to your opponent's counterplay. If black here was paying attention, so let's first talk about what white is threatening. You know, any previous mistakes black committed at this point in the game would be completely irrelevant. Just need to focus on the position in front of you and what's the very best move right now. So I think what's going on, white's teeing this guy up, controlling a lot of squares, and these are also pointing at black's king. That means black doesn't need to be getting fresh with ideas like f6 and e5. I think. I mean, you know, he's got a lot of loose pieces in this position. So after bishop h3, I don't think you really need to trade rooks, because what this does, now white just has the only open file, and you can barely move this guy because the a5 pawn is weak. Okay, no point in trading rooks to me. After bishop h3, while black does want to trade pieces because he's being attacked, you don't want to be too crazy. You don't want to go too far, bend yourself over backwards trying to trade pieces. So I think here black just needed to chill out and play e6. And so this e6 move, now, okay, you did what you wanted to do, right? They are who we thought they were. The bishop on this diagonal, now black's got a diagonal for his bishop. Okay, that's fine. Trying to put the pawn on b4, that would be a really good idea. You know, after some exchanges or not, black will at least get an entry point, something, you know, just something on c3. So I think he had to play e6, which would really nullify the effect of this bishop move. I mean, it'd still be a good move, bishop h3, but you know, these ideas of playing e4 for white, or for example, playing f4, f5, I don't think that's really realistic. If queen to f4, trying to hit this guy up, I mean, we got even knight to d6 is okay. You know, a little bit looser. But probably should be okay. I mean, queen e7 would definitely be fine as well. So anyway, I just think e6 here, it was time to swallow the pride and just play a little more solid for black. But he didn't sense the danger, because white, you know, white's moves were pretty sneaky as well. It seems like it's an equal position. Queen d6, this is where black really gets a little too fresh for his own good. Queen d6 was very ambitious. I still think he had a chance with e6. He's still got a chance with e6. And the bishop is, you know, this is legitimate stuff. Anyway, queen d6, knight to d7, very fine move. Now black is getting punished for not shutting down this bishop. And now white, again, I mean, this is important to understand this stuff. These bishops are owning, white is owning everything. Right. Meanwhile, black, he takes the pawn. He takes a gambited pawn. I don't know if he can really come back. I mean, f6 here, maybe, but I believe it runs into something like bishop c5. I don't even know where you put the queen. I guess over here. It's in timeout. And now it would seem to me that white is winning. This pressure, the rook's coming in c7 someday. Let's just check this line just for fun. Rook c7. This is toast. This is Dunsky. Anyway. So after knight d7, black is in a lot of trouble. I think he could have played e6. It just gets, well, e6 doesn't, I guess it does work. I mean, either knight takes d7. This is a tough position to play, though. I mean, this bishop, I mean, e6, this is just tough. Knight to b6. This is also threatened. The queen can come here and chomp. Yikes. So black, he snatches a pawn. Bishop c5. This was a cool idea. At first I thought the queen takes b3. That white was just killing it. Has the sneakiest queen trap ever. But then I realized it's not that easy. That after queen takes b3, rook c3, black, he gets out. And maybe white's got to take like a perpetual. So then I started thinking a little bit more, and actually we'll check the game continuation. Black played b4. It'll be the exact same. We'll see in a few positions. If black had taken on b3, his queen is still so far out of play that he played b4, trying to fix the weakness, I guess. Anyway, it essentially results in the same thing. White captures on f8, again forcing play that's positionally based. White is trying to open up. You know, he's opening the dark squares here. So king to g8. Okay, what else? Knight g7. You know, at first I was looking at these like combinations with rook takes c7 or rook c7, all this stuff. But then I just realized maybe there's I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on here. I think this is not going to work. Maybe we could even see bishop here. King up, bishop e6. I don't know. I mean, this whole situation. Let's just go with the simplest, right? Rook here, now we're threatening queen here, bishop e6, bishop takes f6. There's no way black can withstand it. So instead he goes king g8, bishop takes e7. Yikes. Now the queen here, we can see the advantage. Instead of taking b3, the queen is tying the queen down to the defense of the c1 rook. So that is good for black. Knight to e7, now bishop f6. Very nice move. Knight e7 was... Knight g7, this was a very bad idea. Black here, I think he's got to go queen to b2. And this is a nice defense. I don't think it's going to hold, but this is a good idea, trying to get the queen back to cover some of these weak squares. The line that I was looking at went something like bishop to d7. Going after this guy. Queen g7. And I want to say queen to f4. The threat's pretty simple. Take on e8, remove that knight as the defender, bishop f6. There's no way black is going to be able to survive this. Anyway, what happened in the game? Knight g7, white just went bishop f6. And pretty consistent move. You know, this is where it's going down on this diagonal. Black just goes back. Now the queen is completely incommunicated with his pieces. Rook to d8, the idea was to stop white from playing bishop d7. Just give a quick example. Bishop d7, threatening to remove the defender again with queen g7 mate to follow. So rook d8, and white just plays rook c7. This is a nice move. This is a classic deflection. Again, the knight is simply overloaded. It can't defend all this other stuff. It's trying to defend mate right now. And rook to c7, very nice move. The knight cannot take. Will get mated. So rook c7. Black tried just anything. He didn't want to resign. He took the pawn. And now Mr. Chess Explained, fellow YouTube chess commentator, Chess Explained, he played bishop e6. And this is where black had enough. He threw in the towel. This was cool. I mean, this is a really nice position. White's king, you know, he didn't move any pawns in front of his king. His king is so safe, and every single one of his pieces is participating in the attack. This is perfect. I mean, this is a very, very clean finish to the game. Meanwhile, black's bishop is hanging. Right? Let's not even forget that. This is toast. So a very nice game, and I definitely recommend all of my YouTube fans and followers, whatever, to definitely check out Christof Sielecki. He's very talented, and he's very good at what he does, so check him out on YouTube at Chess Explained. So thanks for tuning in.